Hello and welcome to the Happiness Is podcast with me, your host, Bruce Aitchison from Happiness is Egg-Shaped. And the grin is back. The big silly grin is back because today I am very excited. The word legend is used often, but oh boy, have I got a legend for you. And amazing that I've never been in the same place at the same time, because the rugby world's a village and the Scottish rugby world is even smaller. But definitely someone I know lots about, lots of people in common, and I'm really keen to hear the views of what's happened before and what's brought us to this point now, as the Scotland women have disappeared off to New Zealand for the Rugby World Cup. So who would you speak to get an insight? You'd speak to the one and the only Donna Kennedy. Good morning.
Morning, Bruce. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well. I'm very excited to have a chat to you. Now, the Scotland women have flown off to New Zealand for a World Cup. That's old hat, isn't it? You've done that before.
Well, I've not flown off to New Zealand for a World Cup, so I'm really jealous about that, I've got to tell you. But yeah, no, played in 5 World Cups, but when you think about it, I've never had a chance to play in New Zealand, so to fly off there for a World Cup to play on the world stage is just super exciting for them.
When you hear athletes talk about Olympics and Commonwealth Games, they talk about playing at home. Now, you played at home, but in a very different time and stage of the women's game. What was that like?
So you really ask me to pull back my memory here, Bruce. Yeah, back 1994, yes, it was the first World Cup, so which was held in obviously Scotland, but it was supposed to be Amsterdam, as you know, and I'm sure you probably know some of the history around about that we salvaged that World Cup. What I can remember, the tacky tracksuits was one. Yeah, the material on them not very nice. I think they were sort of blue and then a darker blue. Yeah, not fitting properly. So that was the other thing as well. In fact, I was glad we had tracksuits because everything we had, we had to pay for quite a lot of. So, but yeah, I remember those sort of things. But I just remember being really super excited. Didn't really know what to expect because it was our first one. We really only started playing international rugby in 1993 was our first international game against Ireland down at Rayburn Place. And then we were launched into a World Cup. So really didn't know what to expect. And we were just all really super excited to be part of that journey, really.
That first game at Rayburn Place, I've seen video footage. I don't know if you've ever seen the video of it, have you?
I look back and I go, oh my word. Compare it to today's game, it's like chalk and cheese. Yeah, completely. I was talking to someone about this the other day, actually. Who was it I was talking to? See, this is what happens as well. We tend to lose my memory. Yeah, I was talking to a group of, in fact, it was Friday. I was at the City of Glasgow College, and I was talking to some students that were mentoring. And I was saying back in the day, we couldn't even jump in the line out. It was just an absolute riot in the line out. It's a complete mess, absolute mess. But yeah, obviously the laws have changed over the years, and the game's evolving the pace as well. So it's a completely different game.
You must have an immense sense of pride, though, to have been there at the start.
Yeah, I mean, you're taking me back here because it's like I didn't start playing until I was 19 because there was
Bigger. London's
bigger.
big, but bigger's bigger.
Everybody feared coming to bigger. They knew that sheep. I don't know if I can swear on this sheep pitch. Yeah, we played up there, and it was like they knew they were coming for a battle. So, but we looked after them afterwards, as always. But yeah, no, I started it bigger, and being at school, we played hockey, and that was it, and did athletics, and the boys did the rugby. So there was nothing for us at that time. And then I did a lot of stuff with the young farmers, and we were doing tug of war at the time. And I remember the club saying, right, we want to get a women's team up and running, so who can we ask? So they came to us, the girls that were doing like the young farmer stuff in the tug of war, and of course we all stuck our hand up and said, yeah. And then that was the journey. It literally was. I hadn't played before, hadn't touched a rugby ball before. So, I was very, I still lucky, I don't know, but, I was sporty anyway, so I was always involved in sport. So obviously I made that transition from doing athletics and hockey to playing rugby.
So Bigger, I don't remember Bigger ever getting much credit for developing women's game, but that's where Donna Kennedy started. Like, and now we've got Emma Orr away in the squad. What an amazing thing for a club like Biggar, and some great foresight back then to say we want a women's team. Can you remember whose idea it was? Who gets the credit for that?
No, is the honest answer. I can't remember who it was. I just remember the club, stating that they did want to get a women's team up and running, and it just all happened through that Young Farmers Network. That's really how it sort of came to life. And we were competitive, and we played, really good rugby. I remember just travelling, into Edinburgh, playing the games there, going across to Glasgow, and the game just built up and progressed, and more women got involved in it. And then when did I leave Biggar? I think it was about 3 or 4 years after that. And I started to play my rugby at Herriot University. So I used to travel into Edinburgh and play there. And then Herriot University became the Murrayfield Wanderers, and the whole transition, a lot of the teams had merged after that. So, but when I heard Emma was playing from Biggar, I was just, I tell you, proud. I was absolutely bursting with pride to hear there was another female rugby player that is going to don that blue jersey. I think it's absolutely amazing, because Scott Lawson did it as well. As you know, Scott was a Biggar boy, so he obviously was doing Biggar proud as well. But again, obviously from a female perspective, I was super proud when I heard that Emma had got into the squad, and she was doing the sevens first, wasn't it? So she was going through the sevens program, and then I actually met her parents at the last game when they were playing against the USA. So we sort of do know each other, and we sort of recognised each other at the game. So it was nice to see them there. So big supporter of Emma, as I am of the whole team. But obviously I've got a special bit in my heart for Emma, with being a Biggar girl.
She's a class act as well. Yes, she's a real quality player.
Yeah, better than me, by far.
Yeah, but she's standing on your shoulders, though. She's got a lot to thank you for. When you get a chance to speak to the current crop, how does that go? Are they asking you questions? Are you more inquisitive to them?
So we really, there was a big void for a while, that there was really no connection. And I say, no, that's wrong actually, because I was doing some mentoring. I still do mentoring with Lana, and I've done that for a while with Lana, but there's nothing ever been formally put in place to have that connection to the past players, to the present players. So you're really doing that through your own network. So if you know someone, be in touch with someone, that's the way it was done. But recently, I came away from, I'll tell you what it was. It was the England-Ireland game down at Welford Road. And I was sitting in the crowd, and Beth McLeod was sitting behind me and doing her usual naff banter, as she does. She won't thank me for saying it. She's not naff, honestly, Beth. Honestly, it's a bit of banter. And I remember sitting there, and it was Jill Burns who'd got a whole load of I'm sure you're aware of this, but a whole load of ex-county but international players, where if you'd represented your country or your county, to bring your caps along and just to be present in that game. And if I remember rightly, I think there was about 300.
It was an amazing sight in the stand. It was absolutely stunning.
Unbelievable. And I felt embarrassed, to say the least. I thought, God, this is amazing, but why have we not got something like this going on in Scotland? I thought, this, can't happen, because we've tried a few times, because we had our 25th anniversary, and we had of the Ireland game, with the one that I spoke about earlier, 1993, but there was no continuity after that. So I remember standing up, and I said to Beth, I said, we need to do something here. So I came away, and I Facebooked, as we do, as the youngsters probably do, Twitter and all the rest.
Exactly.
So I sent a Facebook message. I just reached out to a few girls that I know and still keep in touch with, and I said, right, are you up for this? Let's get on a call and let's get this going. And it was overwhelming. The guys that I contacted, like you mentioned earlier, Rona Shepherd, Jenny Sheeran, Lee Coburn, Jilly McCord, Lynn Reid as well, and Beth McLeod, as we spoke about as well. So, and Kim Littlejohn, who was the very first captain of that game that we played in, the World Cup 1984 as well. So I reached out to a few of the oldies, as we would call it, or ex-players, probably the official term. And they were well up for it. And I said, right, let's get this going here. Let's just not just be a talking shop. Let's really bring it to life. And we did. So a few phone calls later, and a few embarrassing sort of recalling of old stories and stuff like that, a bit of banter. And we come out the other end, and we've got an association called the Scottish Thistles. And basically our main premise is to unite the clan. And that's looking at 3 key areas. And that's looking at the past players, the present players, and also the future. So unbeknown to us, the SRU were obviously doing their strategy, and obviously this ties in. So that we did that independent. That wasn't alongside with the SRU. So that actually ties in really nicely. But really what we're there to do is, first and foremost, is be there for each other. And it doesn't matter whether you're past, present, or looking at that future element from that grassroots. We want to make sure that we can support Scottish Rugby going forward, and the players, the families. There's a whole host of stuff that we want to do with it. So, for example, we reached out to Brian and his team and said, look, we know a lot of the players have never been to a World Cup, have never experienced it, but we have. What can we do to help? And they welcomed that with open arms. So again, we actually went. We were supposed to go to the Spain game, but obviously sadly, that was.
Me too.
But we did something over screen as well, so we managed to share our stories with some photographs, and spent some time with the team. We got to see them train, and then had a bit of a lunch with them, and just having that sort of session where the girls could just talk to players that have been in that environment and experienced that, and just have that network that they can reach out to. Because there's other aspects of it as well. It's like, players that was in that squad that didn't go into playing. So how do they deal with that? How do you deal with, you've been in an environment where you're looking forward to World Cup, it's taken 12 years to qualify, and you're not going. Who helps them with that? Who better to help them but players that have been through that as well. So that's one example of how we can help support the present players as well. But when it comes to the grassroots, again, it's looking at future players. I mean, we want to be role models and inspire young children to, young girls to play the game, whether that be in this side of the border where I live in Worcester, so I'm predominantly down in England, but we want to make sure, because there's a lot of players around here that are Scottish qualifiers. Look at Katie Mattison, who's just she's gone out, a Worcester player. I must say that's my bias, because I played at Worcester. By bias, and I think that you've got to have that network, because you've got to make sure that the players are getting the opportunities. That's the big thing, is having those opportunities, not only to play rugby, but if you aspire and are good enough to play for your country, that you get you get seen for doing that. There has to be a pathway in place that allows that to happen.
I love hearing your enthusiasm. Well, one of the players you're talking about really there is Jenny Maxwell. An exile, but doesn't get to go because injury. I see the players, I think, centre a present of, we're still thinking of you, and all, a nice thing. They've got such a togetherness. They've been through a huge amount. I love this squad of Scottish players because they seem like they have fun. I spoke to CB, her tight head prop that Maggie Alfonsi loves, and I was saying to her, I love when you guys portray your social media, and I know that's just a snapshot, but when you smile going out to training and you're smiling arriving at games, it's refreshing, because that's not what we're used to seeing. And you obviously enjoy what you're doing. And you said, well, why wouldn't we? And I love that attitude. It must be refreshing for you to dip your toe back into that. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, when we played, we were a tight team, because it was like there wasn't that many. There was like the pool of players that there is today. So the sort of, I suppose what the word I'm looking for is, the turnover of players, in a sense, wasn't as much as what you probably would have in today's squad. So when I think back to playing, it was like, when you were on the pitch, you were on the pitch for 80 minutes. It's like, whereas nowadays it's like you get on, you do your stuff, and you know what, someone else will come on and take it to the next level. So, and Gilly McCord joked the other day there. She said, "Yeah, when you were on the bench, you were getting splinters." Well, that's not the case now. Do you know what I mean? It's that squad is there. It's because it's like everybody's there to, they'll partake in whatever part of the game it is. But it's a different. I suppose it's not necessarily culture, but it's just the different expectations that you just don't necessarily play a full 80 minutes anymore because of the way the game's played. It's just, to last 80 minutes at that pace, my word, it's enduring. I think I'd last 5 minutes now.
Right, quick fire, quick fire, because I know some of this, but I don't believe some of this, right?
All right, okay.
How many caps have you got?
115.
How many caps did you start?
115.
That is bonkers.
But that would not happen now, Bruce. I can't see that happening now. You know, and it probably, I don't know, it's right that doesn't sort of, I don't know. I just think it was just the way it was in that day. And I think now, yes, I'm proud of that. You know, there's something I take a lot of pride in. But I just think it's just the game's played differently now, and how the strategy of like how you bring certain players on at certain times is completely different.
But that is phenomenal commitment, because you weren't a professional player, and even take away all the physical, you gave up so much time to start 115 international games. We were getting excited when Emma Wassell got 50 on the bounce. Come on, Emma, get to the back of the queue here. Donna smashed this. That is an unbelievable achievement.
Yeah, and it's I suppose every time you take the pitch, you're not necessarily, for me, my drive was always to be the best and to get selected. I think that's it. And it wasn't until someone actually pointed that out to me. I hadn't realised that was necessarily the case. But when you think about it, it's like, yeah, it's a big achievement. And given the era that I played across from 1993 to 2010, I did try to retire twice, by the way.
Yeah, not very hard from what I've read. But you did try very hard. I think you just wanted a cuddle.
Well, exactly. I needed a wee cuddle to come back. Yeah. But I think it was more like in the 2006 when I tried to go. I thought it was right at the end of that World Cup, because there was a lot of the players round about the time that I played with for such a long time. I thought it was the right time for me to go. And I'd actually just moved down south in 2005. I remember it well because I went down south to play a year in a full year before we went to the World Cup in 2006 to play in the English Premiership. And I never came back, so I ended up staying down. But and I remember it, very well. I thought this is just the right time for me to retire. But actually, then I was still playing in the Premiership after the World Cup, so I was still playing high-level rugby and enjoying it. And then I just decided to come back. I just thought, I'll come back if they'll have me. I'll come back. But yeah,
but 2005 must have been an unbelievable year, because you picked up another award in 2005, didn't you?
You got to remind me which one that was.
Were you the best player in the world then?
Was that the IRB? Was either?
Yeah.
Was it? Yeah. I remember getting an IRB award. It was either 2004, 2005.
Just old hat to you.
Listen,
old hat.
You're joking there. I've spent 2 days up in Edinburgh doing the PREVENT study for early detection of early dementia. So.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That's
about dates.
That's a whole other topic.
Exactly.
You mentioned Kim Littlejohn before. I met Kim for a screening of a documentary that's been made and still hasn't got there for the 150th of the first game between Scotland and England, and that was where I saw the footage of that game against Ireland.
Not just the boys' game. I think that's what it's called.
No, it's the Great Game documentary, and it's the history of but they included this part about how the women's game, and it was the impact of that, and it was played, obviously your game was played at Rayburn Place. Yes. And Kim, I mean, what a game. It just looked like it was obviously the beginning of something, and like you said, when you look at it now, it's come so far, but you could just see the pride in Kim to have been there at that. But like you, she was desperate to get back involved. I don't know if you've heard that Owen Eastwood, he's written a book called Belonging, and he talks about the us story and how important it is for people to know what their history is really and how they've got to that point. You're now involved in that. You're now telling some of these current players. But I love that you're looking to the future. Have you got a crystal ball? Can you see what it looks like in 10 years' time?
So, idealistic. I'm going to be realistic about it as well. But I would love to see. For me, I think for Scotland, the domestic game needs to get better. I think that's one of the key things. There has to be that week in, week out competition level that really, sets the players up to then compete not only the international stage, but on that world stage as well. I think that's one key thing. So I'd love to see some sort of league, whether it's cross-border league or whatever it looks like, but a really good, robust league set up in Scotland, very similar to what we have here down in England. I think that'd be the first thing I would like to definitely see within a 10-year period. And I suppose when it comes to the actual professionalism of the game, then I'd like to see very similar, and I don't make any apologies about this. I'd like to see, a replica of what the RFU have done, English Rugby Union, what they've done, and with the SRU, we're on a journey with it. The SRU have definitely put a lot of investment, and they've got a strategy in place, which I think is fantastic. But I do think, that there has to be a lot more injection of not just the structure of the game, but obviously that support from a monetary point of view as well. So I'd like to see that get expanded even further and be on the conversation at every board meeting that's in the SRU have. And I'm going to put my stake out here right now. I'd love to be in that board within 5 years' time.
Yes.
There you go. I'd love to be in the SRU board within 5 years.
Okay. Love that.
Let's get that. We'll lobby for it now, shall we?
Well, I reckon you'll have a lot of support. If Gilly McCord knows this, she'll be stamping her feet and making it happen. Because
she does know that. I said that in the Scottish Thistle, so I've made it
good.
Clear. That's where I'd love to get on the board. So
that's so important as well, though, because we've got female coach Claire Cruikshank is away at the World Cup with Scotland. Louise Dalgleish, Daggie's away doing missionary work in Japan and doing great things there. So there's players, there's grassroots players coming through. Hopefully, there's young players like Emma Orr who are coming into the squad and freshening things up. But it's important to have a voice in that political, I suppose, arena as well for the sport.
Well, you say political. I think it's just more where it's having a voice in the boardroom. Because there's a lot of things get discussed in that boardroom. Because there's a lot around about the commerciality side of things and stuff. But I think it's just having that voice and presence. Voice and presence is two big things. I'm not saying the SRU forget about the women's game, but if you can see it, hear it, and feel it, and someone's being a role model and pushing that forward, then you've got a lot more presence round about that. So and a little bit more say round about it as well. And the other key important thing is understanding, why. So for example, if something's getting allocated or decisions getting made, it's like, let's understand why the reason is that. Because you can look back and say, well, why have we not invested in the women's game before now? Right? It's easy to say that, but there'll be reasons that that's the case. So, let's understand what that is. And maybe we can't do it now. However, the plan is in 2 or 3 year time that this is what it's going to be. But give people the reasons, don't leave them hanging without really knowing why things have not been done. Because people will look at other unions and go, look what they're doing over here. So why is SRU not doing that? So let's have a conduit or someone who can actually help to, get it out there and understand, the reasons why that's not happening. But let people know that, what, it's on the cards. We want to try and do this. Just maybe got a time limit on it.
Yeah, your passion shines through. So you were a sporty kid, you said. You're involved in the Young Farmers, you're doing tug of war, you've played a lot of hockey, and someone says rugby, and from everything I now know of you, you don't say no. You just you get into it, you're in there.
Yeah.
But what was it about this game that made you think that's for me? Because you had some challenges to overcome. You were self-funding, you were still having to live life as well as have this hobby that you were, and that's what it was at the time, really. It was a hobby. It was just something you were really passionate about. What was it about rugby that grabbed you?
So I think I was an aggressive little shit. I don't know if I can say that. We're going to edit this out.
No, go for it.
I'm very competitive. So anything I did, I remember being at Biggar High School, and every year Helen Brewster and I were going for the sports champion every year. And I won it 4 times, and Helen won it once. And I was like, right, I'm gutted that she did it. And then I had a big sister who was always faster than me, better academically, and probably I'm surprised that she didn't take up rugby, but she was better, at athletics. So again, I had that competition edge on me. I always wanted to, compete. And then when you add in a bit of contact, well, that was just it. I just thought, this is the game for me. I was like, this is brilliant. You get to, run around, have a bit of contact, and then, just the camaraderie of the teammates and everything, and then getting, I don't know, just the whole ethos of rugby in its own right, to how it, from start to finish, when you put your boots on until you come out, play the game, go back in the clubhouse. And for me, it just grasped me. And it was just like, something that had been missing. It just felt like a really good connection for me. And then, the rest is, as they say, is definitely history. I had no idea at that time where my career was going or whatever. So it's, I just got, the key thing for me, I was given the opportunity and I took it.
So were you watching it in Biggar? Were you thinking, I'd love a go at that? Or was it just not even on the menu?
Not even on the menu. No, I was aware. I was aware of the internationals that were on. I used to sit and watch the internationals with my dad, I remember. But at that time, before I'd actually been asked to go and play, I never really thought that the desire wasn't there. But as soon as I was given that opportunity, then I was off and running.
Did anybody tell you not to?
I was a bit heavier at that time, and I was put in the second row. I was like, I don't like this. I said, how do I get in that back row? And that thing where you just get to run around. They went, right, well, you need to get a bit leaner and a bit faster. I was like, right. So I did. So off I went, I did it. So I was then sort of been promoted to the back row, as I would say.
and fitted your mentality. Did anybody ever tell you not to play, or it wasn't for you, or that's not what women do? Did you experience any of that at the time?
Do you know what? I didn't, because I think it's where I was very supportive community, with it being a very rugby community anyway. At the time, I was working as a vet nurse in a place called Lanark, and it was part of the University of Glasgow vet practice. So everybody sort of knew me. They knew me as Donna, the rugby player. That's what was my identity. And when I moved from there, I then went to work for a pharmaceutical company as a sales rep. So again, everybody knew who I was. And I know all places by if they've got a vet practice. That's my compass. There's a vet practice, I know exactly where I'm going. So, and I remember going to Kelly Brown's dad's, because he's got a practice down the Borders.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting having various conversations. We never spoke about the products I was selling. It was it was always about rugby, but I seemed to sell the products, no problem. And I didn't have any problems getting appointments either. So everybody was quite happy to sit and have a chat around about the rugby side of things. So support-wise, I didn't have an issue. And also having time off as well. Every company that I worked for were very supportive of giving me the time off and even helping with sponsorship as well. So I was very, very lucky in that respect, because I know there are a lot of teachers who really struggled. They had to take unpaid leave, so there's a lot of struggles in that time. And that's why I allude to the aspiration where I want to see rugby in the next 10 years is, you can't be worrying about your job getting up in the morning. You need to be able to solely focused where the game's going. You need to make sure you're getting the adequate rest time and everything. And when I look at the time span now, the players have gone out to New Zealand, what is it? Is it nearly 10 to 14 days they've got before they play?
Yeah.
And I think that's phenomenal. You're lucky we were in a plane and probably within 48 hours we're chucked in the pitch. It's like, right. So it's, and quite rightly so, that's the way it should be, because it's, how can you be prepared? I often think about looking back and go, right, if I could play in the era there is now, would I be would I have been a better rugby player? Now, you can look at that in a negative way, but also you look at it and go, right, actually, it was relative for me at the time that we were all playing, because we had the wonderful career that we had. And we've, given a pathway for other women and girls to follow suit. But what we want to really do now is make sure that's visible to people, because the connection to the history of the game just wasn't visible. And hence, that's why I'll go back to giving another plug for the Scottish Thistles. That's what we're there to do, is to make sure that, we're bringing that all to life and connecting up all of the aspects of the game that players, all the touch points. That's what we're trying to do.
Amen. I know Hannah Smith has had, I think Hannah's a vet, isn't she? And everything was having to take holidays to play rugby. So she never actually had a holiday because she was it was job and then it was rugby, and that can be tough mentally and emotionally. Is that where you see most of your support?
Yes, I do think so, and I think when you look at, like, and I can use my story as a prime example. Retiring in 2010, I didn't know who to turn to. I had two choices. What I thought I had two choices. One is I go into coaching, or two, I go into refereeing. So, given the amount of can I say the word? Not really abuse, but constructive feedback to referees over the years, I didn't think it's probably appropriate for me to become a referee. So I thought, well, what do I love? I love, helping people and be involved in the game. So I went into coaching, and I still do quite a lot of coaching and stuff like that as well. So that's what I chose, but it never gave me the same feeling as what pulling on the shirt and playing it, whether it be for club, whether it be for, internationally, just that bang, you're stopped, you're playing rugby. Now, I had a choice. Now, I was lucky. I called my time. It wasn't through injury. I called it because I was getting too slow, too big, and I was too sore. So I knew my body was done. I was absolutely done. I was 38 at the time. And everybody was looking at me and saying, right, no, Donna, I think it is your time to I said, yeah, I think you're right. So I needed something to plug that gap. I mean, and I describe it as a void. So when people ask me about it, it's like a massive void in my life. Because I touched on it earlier. It's like I was known as Donna the rugby player. That was my identity. That's all, it's all I knew. And then suddenly I'm not Donna the rugby player anymore. And dealing with that, God, I've been on an up and down journey. I've definitely hit rock bottom. I've been depressed. I had to go on medication for a period of time because I just lost my own identity. I lost my drive in life. I really did. And coaching gave me a bit of that back, but not to the same extent. It really didn't. But then you have to. You realise you come through the other side of it. Talking to other people. But I had to seek that out. I had to seek help. I had to go and get professional help through that. Now, I don't want that to happen to anybody else. I want to make sure that, there's people out there that they can come straight to us. They know exactly, and we can put them in play, put them in touch with someone who's experienced exactly the same as they have and help them through that. And I said this to Brian. I texted him before he left, and I said, look, let's have a chat when you get back about maybe setting up a formal, mentoring program. And he says, absolutely brilliant. So he's up for this. That we put those connections together to help each other.
Yeah. Amazing. There's two bits to that. One is I completely agree with you. I never played to your level at all, but coaching is a million miles distant second to playing. There is nothing ever better than playing, and I miss it still. The other one is Rocky Clark, who you'll know. She's
I coached her.
Oh, did you really?
I
didn't know that.
So Rocky and I played together at Worcester.
Yeah.
And then when I was the coach at Worcester, I was coaching Rocky. Yeah, I know her very well.
Well, she experienced something similar when she stopped playing international rugby. She had that void and has had her own challenges. So it is something that is relevant and unfortunately, it's going to happen. The stats say it's going to happen. So given the current crop, that opportunity to speak to people and get some support is absolutely amazing. Now, when you went into coaching, you got a pretty decent phone call for a gig.
Oh, yes.
I mean, you must. Is that one where you thought, yeah, absolutely, that's me? Or were you pinching yourself? Come on, come and coach the Barbarians in America. Like, what?
Well, when Stalkers, I think she texted me first and said, can I call you? And I went, all right. Well, she asked me to play again. I was like, bloody hell, does she not know I'm retired? And then we chatted and she mentioned about coaching Barbarians. I went, I said, who else is coaching? She said, Anna Richards. I went, oh, let me think about that for a second. Yes, bloody hell, yes. Absolutely, I'll be there. So, yeah, I was delighted. That was just amazing. And do you know what? Even being in that environment from a Barbarians point of view, but then going out and being with that group of players and then being coaching alongside Anna. So, I've played with Anna, played against Anna, and now I've coached with Anna. So and you know, it's just amazing. She's a legend in her own right. It's just phenomenal to be alongside Anna, and I learned so much from her for a coach, because I mean, I'm you know, coaching is my hobby. You know, it's again I hold down a full-time job, and coaching is my hobby. So for me, being able to be in that environment and learn so much, you know, from Anna was amazing, and just being with the girls. And then we won in the last 30 seconds of the game. And I remember, I don't know if we get time for the story.
Yeah, go for it.
I remember we were in the sort of standing up, and Anna and I were looking at each other going, God almighty, because USA had just scored and we had to go back and kick off. And the next break and play would have been the end of it. And I said, right, Carmen, so what happens? We need to kick off. Carmen needs to jump up in the air, leap like a salmon, tap it back, and we need to get it to old Jazzy Joyce on the wing, and then we're in and we'll score. And lo and behold, it was like something playing out in front of her eyes. Up she went, patted it down, I went along the backs, and I got it, and I called her Jazzy Joyce, get her into her hands, and by God, she scored. And we were just like ecstatic. It was just absolutely amazing. Yeah, it was just phenomenal. As you can imagine, it was a great night as well after that. So
those are great. Yeah. When the ball gets into Jazz Joyce's hand, she tends to score. She is lightning quick.
She is super quick. Yeah.
So good. Donna, listen, I think I could be here all day and all night, and there's still so much to talk about. I have spoken to some Hall of Famers, and having somebody else on is another cracker. Thank you so much. What I hope is that we can speak again, and we can speak again soon, and we can keep giving the Scottish Thistles this platform. But before I let you go, I need you to finish the sentence for me. So for you, Donna Kennedy, 115 capper, Barbarian, legend, Hall of Famer, happiness is?
Happiness is a family walk on a Sunday afternoon with Rory and Ailey and my wife Karen, and of course our dog Brody.
Okay, well, I better let you do that then. Donna, thank you very much. I've absolutely loved it. Great to speak to you.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Well, how good was that? That is the one and the only Donna Kennedy, and she will be back. I'm going to hold her to that. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please listen to the others. Go to the back catalogue. You can catch us on Apple, Acast, and Spotify. You can watch on Facebook and YouTube. Leave us a review, tell your friends, and spread the word. We've had 44,000 downloads of the pod so far, and we're creeping very, very close to number 100. So tell your friends and get them involved. My name is Bruce Aitchison from the Happiness Is podcast, and my happiness is egg-shaped. I look forward to speaking to you all again very, very soon.